platform where I can amplify other community voices. Through those experiences, I've been empowered. I found myself, my voice, my self-identity, and I champion other people to do the same thing.
Welcome to another episode of the Talking with Top podcast. I'm your host, Top Carter. Today's episode is sponsored by 93 Michi Beats. Forget your producer. My beats are made by Michi. Today on the show, we have our special guest, Dani Marie. Dani is an entrepreneur and a podcast host. Welcome to the show, Dani.
Thank you, Todd, for having me. I really appreciate it. Happy to be here joining you.
Absolutely. All right. So before we get started, go ahead and tell everybody, where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm originally born and raised from Tacoma, Washington. I've only ever lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Germany, Stuttgart. I still can't pronounce that correctly. But my mother being in the military as a toddler, we lived in Germany for a short stint. Aside from that, Las Vegas, lived there for about a year, but I'm 37 and I've spent my entire life here in Tacoma, Washington. For those people who are not familiar, that's about 45 minutes south of Seattle.
Oh, okay. Well, that's exciting. Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so born and raised in a single parent household to my mother. Like I said, she lived here in Washington by way of Illinois, moved out here due to wanting better opportunities. Grew up in a single parent household alongside my younger sibling. And for the most part, just raised kind of middle class family, raised kind of with a strict mother who was in the church. Also, like I said, a military mom. So she was stern from both ends because of the military and because of church. We were really guarded, very much protected, very much lived in a latchkey mother bear helicopter household. And from there, kind of grew into being a misfit because didn't really like that I was so in a household of so much control. And also when my mother was, full-time working, obviously we kind of find our way in the streets. So that brought me into very much spinning my wheels, not very successful doing the things that I wanted to do, ultimately getting me into Job Corps to learn a trade. From there, learning a trade and encountering like the first instructor that actually cared anything about me, Mary Hoover, shout out to her, is when I started to make a pivot in my life. And from there, I just started to become very community oriented, very much wanting to plug in at any opportunities that I saw aligned with helping people who were in need, low come, at risk, everybody in between. And so that just kind of went to sitting on foundation boards, becoming the executive member of organizations like the former college I attended, Clover Park Technical College, or Young Professionals of the Tacoma Urban League, joining the United Way King County Reconnecting Youth Program. And from there, I've always kind of worked multiple jobs at the same time, just had a heart to push myself and drive, like I said, wanting better opportunities. And that landed me in technical college and then went there from technical college and just made baby steps to get my master's degree. So from technical college to my degree in basically psychology or education, where I went to get my bachelor's. It was very liberal and you can kind of build your own credentials there. So Evergreen State College in Washington. So went from my technical degree getting human services and then a psychology and education or liberal arts degree and then my master's in educational leadership. And from there, I continued working jobs I didn't very much care about, but I've kind of built a career in customer service and education or working with youth. And I thought I would use those credentials in my master's to go and support youth in some capacity. But because of my experience in education, I just couldn't do it. I could not kind of get with the public education system. So I never did do any type of schooling or teaching or anything of the sort with my master's degree. So just to kind of throw everything on its head, I thought I would be going into the public education system and teaching, but now I'm teaching people how to get into podcasting. And I've turned my passion for helping people into now helping industry experts launch, grow, and monetize their podcast.
Wow, that's awesome. That you went into that's what I was going to ask you next. It's like, how did you become a podcast host?
Yeah, so for me, it all kind of happened during 2020 when I did not at the time have a car. I was, like I said, just kind of trying to make ends meet and, always been working, always been a hard worker, but there was really nothing to show for the work that I put in because I've always been kind of spinning my wheels. And in 2020, I encountered my podcast producer. Shout out to Tim. He was actually my Lyft driver at the time, and he was using being a Lyft driver as his opportunity to network with people and pass off his card to people. So he was strategically using Lyft to help him connect with individuals. So he was my driver. He told me about what he does full time and the fact that Lyft was just supplemental income and for him to network, gave me his card. And that was the time that he sowed a seed. And then fast forward to 2022, I was getting laid off, not from just one, but my second full-time job. So it's like I've always had a passion to work. But after getting laid off from two full-time jobs, I said, you know what? I can't keep getting fired. I can't keep getting laid off. Nothing
Right.
to do with me, but everything to do with it being COVID, lack of funding, lack of resources. The programs that I was, you know, employed to work were not sustainable. So those had to basically die out. So from there, I told myself I would start a podcast. I would start the podcast with my mother. At the time, I was in 2022. My son, my firstborn, had to be 1 or 2, sorry. And I needed a space where I can talk to other moms. I needed to talk to my mom about like living as a single mom. So all
Mm-hmm.
of those reasons. And then my dad passed away the day after my son's first birthday.
I'm sorry.
So just thank you, needing a space to kind of talk and vent. And so my
Mm-hmm.
mother and I created the Mother and Daughter Duo podcast where we talked about mental health, childhood trauma, generational curses, stigmas that single moms face. And before I first, launched my podcast, we did 20 episodes, had those in the can, because by that time, I was pregnant in my third trimester with my second child. So I had to be very intentional. So how I got into podcasting was not having any other source, knowing that I could not go get a job and work my schedule around my 2-year-old son at the time, knowing I was going to be delivering another child and daycare was probably not going to be an option. So I had to build an ecosystem from home and I needed a safe space to vent. So it became podcasting for me.
Wow. That is awesome how you just created something out of nothing. And that's pretty much how the best businesses get started. It's just like you'll run into some type of roadblock, and from there, it's just like you just emerged into what you're called to do. I
It's
love
so
it.
true. It's so true, especially as I say, as people of color too, just kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so you kind of, say I'm at my wits' end and there must be something more. So I'm going to take my life into my own hands.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I'm there. I'm really there right now. I keep saying this on a couple of my episodes. I want to control my own day. And so I've given myself a time frame in terms of where I want to be full blown entrepreneur, but that's what I'm leaning toward. And that's what I want to do. I just
And
want to
I
be in my purpose.
and I
And
think COVID definitely did that for a lot of us too, like pushed us into something different, something more. We saw that we could not rely on the system and things to
yes.
work for us. So we had to kind of take our life back into our own hands. And that's why we see a lot of businesses popping up
Mm-hmm.
now. So kudos to everybody that saw an opportunity and moved in that direction. But also, I understand it's not easy when you have a family to kind of just make those rapid, sudden, sometimes irrational decisions. You have to
Right.
kind of pace it out.
You absolutely right. And I say that to a lot of people. I love the good thing that came about COVID is that a lot of people created businesses that they continue to run now or was able to give them income when everything had dried up. And so yes, I would think I was talking about that the other day to my mom. You know, COVID did some bad things, but it also did some good things too. And that was one of them because it gave people, especially us, another outlet for money without depending on that corporate world or whatever. And so I think now I say to people, everybody should have a hustle. You just need that extra money because everything is so expensive. It takes more than just one or two incomes in a house to do the things that you really want to do in life. And then depending on where you are in the country, you know, I'm in Alabama, so this state here is very hard to make really good money. Don't get me wrong, we have people making very well here, and but it's not that way for everybody. So having your own business helps with that, you know, because no one can determine how much you get paid. So love it. So now you talked about one of your podcasts, and I read where you have five. So tell us about one of your other podcasts that you have.
So yes, I have the Mother and Daughter Duo podcast. That's basically for the busy mom to come on the platform. There's group attendance where we all kind of convene and talk about our issues balancing life, business, and parenting. Then we have Life Unscripted, which is more of a one-on-one conversation and interview, talking about any, like for the most part, we have business owners, coaches, consultants, and authors who come on that platform and just share about what they do. And that's an opportunity for them to intimately discuss the things that are happening in their life, the arc of their life, the pivots in their life, the transformations. Then we have Throw It Back Thursday, basically coming on, shooting the breeze, and just get people to see the personal branding, get people to see everything outside of what you do professionally. We talk about issues that have, you know, we've seen on social media, we've seen in media, mainstream media, the news, politics, we touch on everything. And then Follow Me Friday, also group attendance. You come on and you talk about who you are, what you do, where you're from, similar to kind of the questions you asked in the beginning. And that's just like 15 minutes of fame where you kind of jump on the platform with other people and talk about what you do and essentially why people should follow and support you. And then Plan to Podcast is the last, and that is for podcasters to talk about how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast. And that is for people who are interested in starting their own podcast to hear from other podcasters in the space.
Oh, I love it. I love it. When I was looking at your stuff, it seems like we're the same in terms of this is what I do. I mean, I have a 9 to 5, but I only do this. Like I don't do anything else opposed to some of my people that I interview. So I did feel that we had this in common because I'm all about podcasts. So that leads me into the next thing. Like, how did you decide that you wanted to be a planning strategist for podcasts? How did that come about?
Yeah, so basically, like I said in the beginning, I've always had a passion for helping and service. And so it's nothing for me to kind of, if I see somebody doing something, jump in their inbox and say, hey, just tweak it a little bit, you know, not where I am overstepping my boundaries. It's well received each time I do it. But it's nothing for me to share, you know, and give insights and my knowledge on things. And
Absolutely. I
so
love it. That's me all day. That's exactly what I do. And you're so right when you say I don't overstep, but I will tell somebody something that I know that works for me or that I see that somebody else is doing. And I'll just say, have you ever considered this? Or why don't you try this? Or absolutely. It's all about helping.
absolutely. And I'm all for my people, you know. Each one teach one is kind of my motto and the mantra that I live for. And so with that, people started to inquire, girl, 5 shows and you're a mom? Like, how are
Right.
you doing it? So it became like me kind of giving my insights and sharing with people. So I do discovery calls where you can talk and chat with me and I'll give you everything that I know for free. But if you want a detailed plan, that's when you would pay for that service or that product. I'm switching it from like service because I believe everybody
It's okay.
I'm switching from service and I'm going more into like a product because I believe every podcaster should start off with a plan if you want to go and do this as a business or full time. And so, not so much a service, but a product. Just like every person that has a business plan, I believe everybody that has a podcast should have a podcast plan because you jump into podcasting, there's so many different directions that people can move in. There's so many different platforms that you can use, so much different equipment. There's the Buzzsprout, there's Audacity, and just calling out names for all different things. But I think to hone in, people need to figure out what works for them, what their
Mm-hmm.
goals and mission and vision and their audience and all of those things. We need to put that together, put that in a package, and then we need to move accordingly. So it became a business because people started to first inquire, like, what do you do? Second,
Mm-hmm.
because I need to create another stream of income from. That's how Plan to Podcast came about.
I love it because as you were talking, that is something that I have to do myself is get my channel monetized. And I don't have a plan for the podcast. I have ideals, but I haven't just sat down and put together a plan to make this happen. One of the things that I'm doing very great with the podcast, even though I don't have a big following, is that I always have somebody to interview. So that's easy for me. Whereas some people I come encounter, they're like, how do you have so many people? I have a waiting list, and sometimes I'll go search somebody out and put them in front of somebody else. But I literally have people waiting to be interviewed by me. But now I just got to figure out, okay, so I have this and I have good content. That's another thing. Like these stories that I have, I mean, they be really good stories. And they always share something that somebody will tell me, oh my God, I love that person. So I have good content, good stories. I have a lot of interviews, but I still don't have a lot of views. So I got to figure out how to get those views up. But now I will say, I just completed a digital marketing class. And that was very helpful because I saw a lot of things that I can add and that I can do to help with that. So I have some things in place, but I have to work it. And that takes time too, to actually work that. So that's where I am with my podcast.
Yeah, so I would categorize that as like the growth phase. You're in your growth stage where you're growing. You see that you have something that's going well, and now it's time to build and scale it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like the fact that you took the course because you can do ebooks, you can turn your content into an ebook, you can turn your content into a newsletter, and those are ways that you can essentially monetize, but also attract more followers, listeners, and engagement. And that's what the growth phase is, getting more people and eyes on what you're doing with your content and repurposing your content in different channels and different mediums to attract more people. So I love that. I love that you have taken a course. I think also, to your point, there's people who just don't do the work, whether it be planning, and it's just these small touches, that can
Mm-hmm.
set you apart from other people. Taking the course, learning a little bit more, doing what you can for the time that you have available because you're already also working. So taking it one step at a time to grow your followers. And I love that.
Yes, absolutely. You really have to. And I have all these ideas inside, and so I'm just putting them down and, getting them done. But yes. When you discover your purpose.
Well, you know what? It went from me believing that I was going to work with kids and because of my experience not having a mentor at adolescence, to me thinking I was going to go into education and teaching kids, to I feel like I found my purpose as a mom and as someone who's helping not educate people in the confines of a school, in a classroom, in the four walls, but educating people to amplify their voices, share their story, creating spaces where people can speak freely, be vulnerable, and feel empowered because of their stories and sharing, and how easy it was to share, even though it was like uncomfortable at first. Looking back and saying, you know what, like you said, there's people that have been like touched by the stories and the people that have graced your platform. So through that experience, I'm like, yes, it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be in schools and then in the classroom. It's on the podcast. And uh, I would have never have guessed that I can get this exponential growth or touch people, you know, larger than a classroom setting simply by providing content online. So I feel like this is my passion, both being a mom, because I've always said if I was to have children, God decided to give me children at 34. So if I was going to have children, I was going to homeschool them. And here they are. And I was going to be able to travel with my kids. And with podcasting, you can do that. You can pick up and go at any moment. So I feel like this is walking in my purpose. And I get up every day at 5:30 a.m. doing this.
I love it. Absolutely. And that's great. So, helping others makes you feel what?
Helping others makes me feel proud, makes me feel happy. And it's because, like, helping others makes me feel happy, helping others makes me feel proud. And it's because, like I said, coming from a single parent household, just not having the best experiences or best quality of life, I understand what it's like to lack. You know, my mother did the best that she could, but I know what it's like to not have. I know what it's like to want more. And then just wanting the best for people, because I feel like only through community will we all thrive. And so helping others makes me feel proud and happy.
I love that. I really do. The work that you do changed your life.
So presently, in present tense, it has changed my life because I found through podcasting, like even when I started the Mother and Daughter Duo podcast, although we're not actively recording, the idea, and I know you have this question, what do I see myself or something like that down the line? But although we're not actively recording the Mother and Daughter Duo podcast, that podcast opened so many doors. But first, it started with having to have those tough conversations on that platform with my mom. Things that happened to us both that we never got to share. You guys can use your imagination. I don't want to make this like a somber moment, but you know, a lot of things that we deal with in our families and we don't talk about. But just kind of our relationship, we've always had like we're so polar opposites, but we're also very codependent of one another. And there's been some resentment because, you know, I dealt with the physical absence of my dad, the emotional absence of my mom. And so there's been a lot of resentment, but having those tough conversations with my mom, I think fortified our relationship, made our relationship stronger. Communication has been better. And I would say I was always like talking from a 12-year-old girl perspective, even as an adult, because there was some stuff that I have not been able to talk about or address. I've always just, as a Taurus and as a person who's just very bullheaded, very stubborn, doesn't talk about my issues, always the strongest friend of the group. There's a lot of stuff I haven't been able to address. And then having that conversation with my mom, talking about single parenting, talking about how do we end up here, both of us. And I'm 34 and decided after looking at you and you do everything that you did and still decide I'll be a single mom, how did I get here? Do you think that the lack or the absence of a father causes women to be promiscuous? What about parental abandonment? Do you know or realize that when you left me with that caretaker, I was molested? All of those things. Unearthing those topics helped me to be more confident, helped me to show up as my authentic self, even though I was, but there was stuff that I just could not say or did not say. And so it helped transform my life because I was able to unearth those important conversations with my mom. And now there's nothing else I can't do. Like that was like just the beginning of a new life for me.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. You know, as you was talking, I could just think of other people that I know that I can relate to what you're saying. For one, when you touched on, you know, being a 12-year-old self, people don't understand that, but I mean, you can be an adult looking, you know, grown and still have the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old inside, and you can still be paying bills, doing everything. And people, guys and girls, And people don't understand that. I kind of learned that when dating a little bit recently, that people can be stuck somewhere and you're expecting more and they can't give it to you because they haven't addressed that 12-year-old. So thank you so much for saying that, because I know that's going to free somebody, because I'm all about, if you need help, get it. Seek counseling. Self-discovery is something that I'm very big on, because I learned some things about myself. I grew up in a two-parent home, but I still had my children out of wedlock. And then I got married. So it doesn't matter if you see it, you still become that. And so, so that, to the single moms, I mean, I'm one, and we make it happen every day.
I was watching the interview, the link that you sent to me, the young lady who was talking about the fact that she was married to a man with a disability and she herself has a disability. And you were explaining like it's gotten you more comfortable sharing some of your own truth on your podcast. I love that. But yeah, I hope this does free some people, because you're absolutely right. They get we just kind of get these blinders on, or we kind of get stuck in ourselves, or we get stagnant, and it's okay to go seek out help, seek out truth. I know a lot of us, being raised in families of color, we're told whatever happens in our house stays in our house. We don't go out. And then we also are told if you go see somebody, then something's wrong with you. And I think that couldn't be any more opposite of what's true about. Get down. The truth is, if you go seek out, you're strong. If you go get help, you're strong. And I think that I love these platforms because we do get to share. This is our therapy in a way, but also do go seek help as well.
Absolutely. And what I was going to share was that once I started to do self-discovery, I kind of learned some things as to why I showed up. I wouldn't really say angry, but I show up a little more stronger than I needed to be. And it was just from some things that I had watched in my household. So I tell people sometimes, because they glorify two-parent households, and it's like, yes, it was good. And my parents are been married 55 years and they're still together, but it's things still go on in those two-parent households that you see that still affect you, whether it's something bigger or something small. We all take our childhood things that we experience and we act out on them later. And so I know that for myself, showing up, because I'm going to show up extra strong, and I don't really need to have to do that. And so that's what I have learned about myself. All right, so we will go to on a personal note and find out a little bit more about you. So in your downtime, how do you have fun?
In my downtime, I'm researching streaming podcasts. Mm-hmm. As a single mom, it's very difficult and that's why I took this 31-day break from podcasting, because as a single mom, it's very difficult for me to find me time. But in my downtime, I like to go hang out with my kids at play places, and I like to stream podcasts, and that's what I do for fun. And I don't shy away from it. It is my truth. There will, be a time that I'll be able to do more. But right now, it's my kid.
Oh, absolutely. And trust me, I had my first child at 28, and then I had my last child at 37. So I do know that your whole life changed, and I went from, when I met my ex-husband, from I used to party a lot before I met him, to when I met him and had our first daughter, to like you are now. Just, it was all about her. As soon as I got off work, I came and picked her up from my mom's, and I went home and I stopped doing everything. And then later, when me and my husband had another baby, when we were after our divorce, let me just share that. It's the same thing. It's just like, it's just all about the baby. So definitely. All right. So what is on your bucket list?
Yeah, that was the question I was referring to. On my bucket list, I would like to create a network, so that, going back to the Mother and Daughter Duo podcast, I want more mothers and daughters to grace the platform, to be a part of the network, and we build a network around them. Doesn't necessarily need to be the duo. It can be a mom, it can be a daughter, it can be a duo. But I want, because I've realized that relationship, especially single moms, can become so strained. And I realized through having that conversation with my mom on camera that a lot of women, did feel that way. There was like, God forbid they want to share some of the things that I shared with my mom. And so I would like to see more moms and daughters kind of lead the charge and break down some generational curses and provide a network for them to have those tough conversations and then usher other moms and daughters into the fold as well.
That's amazing. That's good stuff. I mean, really, just to have that. Me and my mom, we are very close. My mom is really, they say, yeah, mom is not your friend, but my mom is actually my friend. And I could tell my mom anything without judgment. And so I'm so thankful that I, still have my mom. Now she's 75. And every morning I call my mom because I want to first make sure they're good. And as soon as I hear her voice, I'm like, thank you, God. I get to be with my mom another day. So, yes, I love the relationship that we have. And I always tell people I have the best mom on the planet. I really do. Like God, I say this. I say God matched me up with the right mom because he knew exactly what I needed. And she's just that person what I need in terms of like nurturing. She knew how I needed to be nurtured because yeah. Because
Yes.
I know some more mothers. It just wouldn't work for me. And my mom fits me
Right.
perfectly. So I'm thankful for my
That is a
mom in that.
blessing.
Yes,
Blessings. Shout out to
absolutely.
mom. Shout out to pops too, but shout out to mom.
Yes. So what do people misunderstand about you the most?
I saw that question. I said, you know what? I can't take it there. I think people do see me as I'll find a nice way to spin it, but I think people see me as this petite person. They first of all misunderstand that I'm 37. And so they see me as this small petite person and then that maybe she's not as vocal or boisterous or loud or can get gully as you may think. But yes, we all come from a past, and I think I say the most quiet people come from a past that they've been humbled, and so tread lightly. But I say that all to say that um, I think people most misunderstand that I am approachable. I love to help. I set boundaries for myself only to protect myself because I've had a past where people do overstep their boundaries. But I am approachable. I'm a nice person and I love to help and support you in anything that you do. But also, I ain't a killer, but don't push me.
I mean, for the most part, I am professional, but I'm like you. I'm not a killer, but don't push me. So
Absolutely. I think people do take that for granted, for sure. We come and we present as this nice person, beautiful smiles, and then I think people take that for granted. But just know I can talk to you assertively. I can meet you where you're at, pretty much.
right. So what is one of your favorite childhood memories?
One of my favorite childhood memories, just in general, is just being able to walk outside freely, with the neighborhood kids and just kind of hanging out, before the lights come on. That's generally my favorite childhood memory. But there was a time, and this has always been like the little hustler in me. Like you said, we should all have a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would be trying to sell anything I can get my hands on. Free circus tickets, reselling fundraiser stuff that was already sold to somebody else, reselling it to somebody. But there was a time where we noticed a box of kittens on the back porch, somebody else's back porch. And mind you, I'm probably 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't even remember. But we saw those kittens and we went from house to house in the apartments trying to sell the kittens. But come to find out, the word got back to my mom. Somebody came knocking on the door. Y'all were trying to sell those people's kittens and they're looking for their kittens. So I got in trouble for trying to sell kittens, but always kind of trying to get my hands on something. And like I said, trying to make take an idea and run with it. So we at that time thought we were doing something and being little business people by trying to sell somebody else's kittens.
That's funny. That's a funny story. Thank you for telling that. All right. So and last we have, what is your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite Bible verse, Jeremiah 29, for I know the 11. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans to give you a hope in the future. That's my favorite scripture because, even when things seem grim, dark, challenging, even when you're in your last dollar, your last dime, just know God said He has a plan for you, plans to give you a hope in the future, plans to prosper you. So all you have to do, again, this is not the scripture, but it's the faith the size of a mustard seed. Just take that first step to meet Him halfway, and He will provide. And it's not always when we want Him, but it is on time. And so I love that scripture 29:11 because I've been through a lot of different challenges. My kids that I have now are my rainbow children, meaning that I've lost children in the past and been homeless, had to live with other people, all kind of stuff, that someday I'll talk more about. But for I know the plans that I have for you, plans to, give you a hope in the future, plans to prosper you. And so that is my favorite Bible verse.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'll share with you. I too have a rainbow baby. So that's why I have such a big gap in my children, because I had a stillborn in 2007. So that's what created that whole need to have another baby and all of that. So
2008 for me, sis. Right
really,
there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was something that, oh my God, when I say that God knew what I could handle, God worked it out for me. Even though I wanted the baby very badly, God still knew, and He just worked it out for me. And so I always say to people, I don't know where nobody went when people die and they be saying, I want to go with such and such grandma. I say, oh no, I don't know about anybody else. I say, but I do want to go where my Fallon is because I know that she's in the right place. So I say that. But yeah. All right. So Miss Dani, tell everybody how they can follow you on social media.
Yes. And thank you so much for again having me on the platform. I really enjoy myself. It is Dani Marie, itisidanimarie. It is Dani Marie on TikTok, Twitter, Threads. Actually, I don't have a Twitter. Threads, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And then if you're looking to get some services for your podcast, plantopodcast.com/PTP for Plan to Podcast. So that's plantopodcast.com/PTP. And then I'll try to make it to where I do a free offer for those of you who do come and check for me. So we'll say TOT1 will be the affiliate link that you can use, or the referral code that you can use for a discount on any podcast planning services. TOT1.
Oh, I used to have a tag say that.
The number one.
I love it. All right, guys. So you can follow me on TikTok and Facebook as Tot Carter, on Instagram as IvyTot10, and Talking with Tot. All right, guys. Until we meet again on our next episode, go out and be fabulous. You can tell them bye, Dani.
That platform where I can amplify other community voices. Through those experiences, I've been empowered. I found myself, my voice, my self-identity, and I champion other people to do the same thing.